To get into our team introduction tonight, we are going to have Overdose Gaming versus Miraculous Gaming, two very stacked teams. There are a lot of grandmasters on these teams, a lot, and we've casted many of these people before last season, so we definitely have high expectations for these games. It's going to be a good ride. Gallegation, again with the bios. Do you have some for us tonight?
I sure do, but let's start with our own. We forgot to introduce ourselves today. As my cohort said, I am Gallegation, and the beautiful face to the north of mine is none other than Wingnut SC. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, sir.
All right.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well myself. But let's get into these bios. We only have bios this evening from Miraculous Gaming. Unfortunately, Overdose wasn't able to get back to us. But the first match will be between Overdose Gaming's Phil and Miraculous Gaming's Blue Ice. Blue Ice is a Chinese Grandmaster Zerg player. He made Grandmaster last season for the first time, and he considers himself to focus on a variety of playstyles from heavy micro to all-in, and then strong macro play as well. So let's see what he decides to do in this upcoming match.
Indeed. With that, we'll just jump right on into our first game. If I can hit the right buttons there.
There we go.
On Habitation Station, LE in the upper left-hand corner. Representing Protoss wearing purple this evening, it is Overdose Gaming's Phil.
And in the top right corner from Miraculous Gaming and in the Zerg carapace, it is Blue Ice.
Not appropriate color names, but that's fine. We can roll with that. Orange Ice. This is a pretty cool map. I like it. It's big. A lot of, as we've mentioned several times, it is a lot of fairly decent sized maps in the pool this year, which is cool to see. This has obviously the gold expansion out front. We will see if we see anything cool with that, but PVZ, Gallegation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look. I'm going to interview Bio. Phil is a former GM Toss. Got GM at the start of Wings, known for his Sky Toss play in all matchups.
All right, so I would imagine that we'll see Sky Toss play. We did see from Blue Ice's a gas trick there to get himself going a little bit faster, supposedly, or at least feeling so. I think we heard that it's actually not proven to be it's proven to not be faster. But what are you gonna do?
Oh, whoa, what's going on here? We got two drones following each other out here. One scout, one, oh, might have been an accident. Get back to work.
He pulled one down, I think, just in case there was, some kind of building being built. That he could kind of put some aggression on whatever block might have been trying to go down.
Protosses do like to put those pylons down, and
they are so easy to do.
And it's definitely, it's amazing to sometimes when you really pay attention to the timer when that happens, how much, even without a whole lot of effort, you can delay that expansion, and how much that really has an impact. And I talked to a couple Zergs over the last couple days after our cast and playing some casual games, and it's, probably one of the, maybe you can agree or disagree, but probably one of the most frustrating things, because if you've got a fairly tight early build, it really can screw you up big time.
Oh, absolutely, but you have to kind of be willing to think on your feet, and, I mean, it's a common enough thing that you really need to come up with a plan B, I guess, in those situations, knowing where you're going to go or how you're going to respond to a little bit of a block or slowing yourself down. But we do see Blue Ice is putting down that fast, high-yield expansion. He is getting greedy, and it could either hurt heavily or be a big boon to his economy.
I really like to see when especially a Zerg takes a high yield like that and just drones it out real quick and gets a big Ling force and uses that to really overproduce on the Lings to get some early aggression on. But we'll see what he does, and we'll see if Phil spots it. Right now, he does not know any expansions exist for his opponent. He's just kind of got his own build in his head, doing his own thing, so we will see. But do you think we'll see air toss? Obviously, in his little short bio there, that is a thing we saw quite a bit last season, but air toss now, not as new and cool of a thing as it was in the beginning of Heart of the Swarm. Zergs tend to expect it a little more than they did before.
Yeah, I think that it's not as flashy as it used to be, or as popular necessarily, but it's still a strong build, I think. Depending on the army composition, Zerg can kind of have a hard time dealing with it. But what are your thoughts? What do you usually like to go through when you're as a Protoss on Zerg?
I mean, pretty much air toss all the time, because if I don't, I lose every game. But that's another discussion for another time. But I really like, oh, and then we do see a Stargate going down right away as soon as that Cyber Core is done. So we are going to see some kind of airplay here. I'm not as huge of a fan of Oracles against Zerg. I think the Queens are super strong against them, so it's sort of a mobile anti-air for the Oracles. But if you're really good with the clickies, you can get quite a bit of damage done. But we'll see what ends up coming out here. But Void Rays, if you get 3 to 4 of them right away, really quick, and the opponent doesn't see them coming, they can kill bases so fast, and you can just go in and snipe a base and just kind of run out of there.
Absolutely, but it looks like Blue Ices does have a vision on that starport, and he is instantly putting down spores, so he's going to be defended against any, like, one unit kind of coming in and trying to harass.
Blue Ices is transferring quite a good number of drones over to the high yield, so he wants to take advantage of that as fast as he can. He has an Overlord in or near each of Phil's bases, and a clutch unit of Lings out front. Not going to be able to get those in, though, as there's a sentry and a cannon guarding the front door, and coming out is an Oracle, so we'll see what kind of control Phil has and what he can get done with that.
Phil is also putting down his gold expansion base with a single Zealot there to try and defend against it. They did not walk through the attack path of those Lings, but the Lings are kind of... I don't think they even were within vision of that Zealot moving across.
Here comes the Oracle heading across the map. It's going to go right for the gold base. There is a Spore and a Queen there, so it is going to get nothing done. He does see that right away as Lings run into the third base of Phil, pulling the Oracle back, takes him out pretty easy. Does lose a sentry there, though. That's kind of a big deal early in the game.
Actually, it was a probe that went down.
Could have swore there was a sentry there, but my eyes may be fooling me. 22 Zerglings headed out. More Zerglings heading into that gold base now. Cannon trying to come up, but is not going to make it. The Lings kind of getting batched up there in the corner, taking out the pylon. This base does not look like it's going to survive for now.
But Blue Ices is going to make, or I'm sorry, Phil's going to make Blue Ices pay for it with lots of Lings lost. That Oracle, well, the Oracle's not doing any damage, but the Mothership Core's there trying to do as many Ling kills as it can. And now Void Ray is joining in on the conversation as well.
He did get that cancel down. This is the definite weakness of air toss early versus Zerg, is it's hard to deal. Oh, he better be quick with that sentry, and Lings do get in, but oh, he's gonna lose that sentry, so that's a bit of a shame. Does get a second force field down before the sentry dies, but a few Lings are gonna wreak some havoc in here. He does not have a lot to defend against that.
Oracle is coming back, but kind of standing still. I think the Mothership Core is on its way. The Void Rays are attached to it, but the Lings are all in now. And bunching up against that cannon, that's not exactly what you'd like to have happen, and they all get cleaned up.
But he did get quite a bit of damage done there. 9 probes killed for Blue Ices, so definitely making those Lings worthwhile and throwing off Phil a bit. It appeared like he wanted to make a little bit of a move out there and definitely did not get that third base, so Blue Ice is getting himself a bit of an advantage by taking that out.
Blue Ice is moving into Lair Tech now, getting his Hydralisk Den and starting to get those evolution chambers going, and will likely be going for that ranged upgrade.
So as I was saying before before I just had to stop and see if those Lings could make through the hole, that is the weakness. It seems, from my experience of this air toss type play, is once you start to get 1 to 2 Void Rays up in an Oracle, that's when you can get hit by those groups of about 30 Lings, and unless you have immaculate control and really notice them coming, that was the issue there for Phil, is I don't think he saw them coming. And able to sneak in there, and when you've got that 1 to 2 cannons up front, the Lings can get past that. They can just do a ton of damage.
Absolutely. Phil now looking to take that third base again with a couple more Void Rays this time, and the Lings are taking that tower. 1 Hydralisk is joining them, so they won't be completely defenseless against this air, but 1 Hydralisk against all that isn't going to be super effective.
These Zerglings now heading in to see if they can poke away at that third base, but too many Void Rays coming in there to defend it, and decides to pull back. He doesn't want to lose those. He does have several Hydralisks on the field, 10 in production, and a total of 7 on the field. So Hydralisk production is ramping up.
And now Void Rays are moving into the high yield expansion of Blue Ices. Hydralisks are trying to move in. The Queen is there, is getting one last transfuse off. Oh, but they decide to retreat before the Queen is down, and does lose a Void Ray too.
Yeah, losing that 1 Void Ray is kind of a big deal. I can see what Phil was trying to do there, trying to bounce in there and get that expansion down really quick, but Blue Ices did have the proper defense he needed. He had that Spore of the Queen, and the Hydras were conveniently nearby, so That's really what you need to do as a Protoss to get back some advantages, take out that third base. But now Blue Isis has a fourth going down as well, and a lot of Lings and Hydras out front.
So many cannons, those Lings are running into a wall. Hydralisks are moving forward, but the Void Rays are there. Oh, slow time there too. Cannon wall is slowly losing ground, but Photon Overcharge does manage to chase the Hydralisk a little bit further away. More Void Rays are taking damage, but lots of Hydralisks getting killed in this as well.
Oh, one Void Ray does make it away with 4 hit points. Phil doing a nice bit of micro there, but sends a partially damaged Void Ray back out into danger's way and ends up losing it. He probably could have saved it back. He does have a lot of cannons at the front of both bases, so these Hydras aren't really going to get in anywhere all that far, but Carriers now coming out for Phil. I swear we've seen this somewhere before.
It is looking a bit familiar.
So what's the choice going to be for Blue Aces here? We've debated the Zerg response to this exact build many times, and Hydras is a choice. What do you think? And
well, he's putting down a Spire, so that's a little bit of an influence on what I'm going to say here. But I mean, I imagine that it's probably going to be Corruptors. That's what I see. I feel like a lot of people end up trying to do. But it's so hard to tell, especially with. I mean, he's in full carrier production at this point. So I'm gonna have to say Corruptors is what the rate he's gonna go. Oh, we see an Infestation Pit now too as well though. So it could be just any of the various responses to this. What are your opinions?
I don't know. We've seen just about everything, and we've seen just about everything fail. So I'm really curious to see if Blue Ices can pull this off, because the big thing is you know, the knee-jerk reaction I feel like to this type of build from Zerg is to build Corruptors. You know, when you see the Void Rays, he hasn't really seen any Carriers yet, I don't think, but. One would assume that he's been around a while and knows what's coming, but with the Corruptors coming out, the Void Rays can just... You would think they would be a good counter, given that they're a counter air unit, but Void Rays actually just chew them up. So it's just a balance. I mean, it depends on how many Void Rays and Carriers Phil gets, and it depends on how densely populated Blue Ice's Hydralisks versus Corruptors are.
Well, it is Corruptors indeed, and a second Spire is going down to get those upgrades as quickly as possible, while the Hydra mass is in the middle of the map.
Yeah, the thing that we haven't seen out of Phil that leads me to believe this has a chance of being unsuccessful on his part is that in order for this to be universally successful, you really need to be able to harass and keep the number of Zerg bases down, and he was not able to do that. He made that first push with the 4 Void Rays into the gold base, but Blue Ice is defended, and now Blue Ice is working on nearly 5. He does have 5 bases up and running now, so that is a definite downside as the 4th base of Phil is just starting to go up, and Blue Ice is creeping his way across the map. No pun intended.
Well, Blue Ice is, I think, like, if he was ever going to have an opportunity to strike when the iron was hot, it was when he had the high yield just kind of getting going. He was denying his opponent's high yield, and but he just wasn't able to kind of get a push going. But now it looks like he's really committing here. He's got a lot of queens moving across the map, total of 6 there with the army.
Yeah, but what we've seen is that, I mean, this 3rd base is a bit vulnerable now, but all these cannons are going to be finishing up, so pushing into these bases with all these cannons is just so gross for the Zerg army. They just get tore up by those cannons, and the Carrier's going to attack from so far back. Interceptor's out there doing all the work. Mothership Core moves in, puts down a Time Warp before it gets taken out, but Carrier's not taking a lot of damage. One does go down finally, but a lot of Zerg units being lost. Micro being carried out by Phil in a pretty decent fashion, keeping a lot of those carries alive, and as he pushes up the ramp, he's going to run into more cannons.
That's right. Those queens are there doing some transfuses, and a couple of Corruptors are coming in slowly to replenish here. Blue Ice really wants to try and get this base down, losing some Corruptors to poor positioning and over those cannons. But it looks like the Carriers are trying to position themselves to get some defenses going.
Yeah, it looks like Blue Ice is where he wants to be as far as drone count now, sitting at about 91. He is at 200 supply, but considering almost half of that is drones, that is going to be a factor here, because Phil's, if we look at the army supply tab, if I can get it, does have a slightly, Blue Ice does have a slightly larger army, but that army is going to be much less efficient than Phil's. Phil's is going to hang around for quite a while longer.
Yeah, it absolutely is, though. I mean, when you've got virtually free units, I mean, they cost a little bit, but yeah, I mean, they just can keep coming out, and they attack so quickly, it's hard to target the things that are actually the real threat, which is the carrier themselves and not the interceptors.
And when we get into this kind of game, we really have to start talking about statistics. Looking at the income, Phil is not that far behind on the income, even though Blue Ices is sitting on 5 bases as he moves up into the gold base here, trying to take this out. Corruptors move into the carriers, and they just do not want to take that fight as they pull back a little bit. Transfuse is going down on a lot of those Corruptors, but the Interceptors moving in to do tons of damage.
Yeah, these Corruptors are taking tons of damage. Blue Ices is trying to get those Transfuses down, but it's just so difficult to pick on the right one, and the Corruptor count is falling rapidly. This army is going to be falling apart for Blue Ices.
Part of the issue here is those Corruptors are actually attacking the Interceptors as opposed to the carriers themselves.
Yeah, and that's, you know, obviously not what you want to have happen. There are just so many of those Corruptors.
Yeah, look at the Corruptors. They're actually chasing around the Interceptors. You need to be target firing those on the carriers, otherwise it's like trying to kill locusts.
Yep. So Phil feeling pretty good about that engagement, moving those carriers back, not really having lost a whole lot.
Looks like there was a courtesy ping on the map for us showing that the gold is mined out for Blue Ices. All the drones just are sitting there, which is going to affect his income. So income, like we said, both about even. Blue Ices does have a gas advantage just because of the sheer number of bases he has. But now Phil trying to set up his 4th base down here again. He does need to expand soon as he is mined out of his main and will be soon on that gold expansion as well.
But Blue Ice is going back down, trying to deny this 4th base for Phil once again, but the carriers are there. Corruption going down on a couple of those. Trying to get the damage done, but again, they're just not targeting the right things.
Yeah, Phil being very smart here, seeing that Blue Ices is moving back towards more of a Corruptor-heavy composition, producing more Void Rays instead of carriers as those Void Rays just melt those Corruptors. Now, Blue Ices, though, adding in some more Hydralisks and some more Queens to try and make another push, but right now, you would think that Blue Ices would be in a super awesome position given that he's working on getting towards 6 bases. But Blue Ices is actually fighting the uphill battle here because he is forced to be on the aggression because of the build of Phil, and it's so hard to be aggressive against these bases defended by 15 cannons. I mean, alone, this army, you need an army this size to take out just the cannons, let alone the army behind it.
Absolutely. But he continues to get these bases, is trying to get his economy back up and running, having mined out that high yield. And more bases continue to go down, enabling more larvae, but if he doesn't keep that income up, then he's going to have a hard time resupplying.
Queens are lumbering their way across the map, hoping to join up with this army. Those transfuses are pretty important on those Corruptors, as they are pretty meaty armored units. But if he will do a lot better for himself if he targets down those carriers. But now, look, Blue Ices is really expanding his presence across the map. The one thing that we're lacking here is some creep spread. That would really assist these Queens and Hydras in getting across the map, as Hydras just fly on creep.
Yeah, they really are very quick, but I think that the issue isn't necessarily getting the army together, it's keeping it together, and so even those Queens are kind of lumbering their way across, they're still getting up there, and that energy for the transfuse is really what he needs. He doesn't need the creep tumors as much. It's not a run-in and run-out type scenario for him. He's trying to basically make an army that can crush the other army, because Phil's just continuing to play fairly turtly, you know, and he's willing to just let resources be thrown, but this is going to be happening now. The Void Rays are targeting down Queens, and all the Corruptors are gone already. Everything is getting obliterated here. Blue Ices is just not doing any damage.
Yeah, one side of this here is that +3 attack is and has been completed for a while for Phil, while +3 attack for his ground range units and air units is about half done, so he's a little bit behind on the upgrades, and that makes a big difference when you're going up against these high DPS units like the carrier.
Absolutely. And, you know, but the big thing here is that Blue Ices, if he wants to have a chance in this game, he has to actually do damage to that army. He's got to try and do some kind of dent somewhere. And he could try and take advantage of the slow-moving nature of the army, but there's just so many cannons that anything that's quick enough to get in and get out is actually going to be pretty susceptible, and it's going to be a costly run. But that army of Phil's is moving in, taking out. It's going on the offensive and creeping across the map, starting with that mined-out base, but now heading towards the main.
Yeah, and that is the point that you get to in this phase of the game as Phil approaching 200. He does have those bases so well defended with cannons. Oh, and he's going to lose the 3-3 upgrades on the spires. That's not good news for Blue Ices. He's moving in now, just melting the army of here, microing the Void Rays back to get some more shots on those Corruptors with letting the carriers take the hits because they are a bit more meatier. This looks like it's going to spell the end for Blue Ices.
Yeah, and there's just nothing left here. I mean, he keeps now. It's at the point where anything that's popping out is actually getting destroyed before it can do anything.
Well, one says Blue Ices and good game. Well, Gallegation, I can't tell you, I cannot tell you how excited I was for this game. And let me rephrase it, how excited I am now that we have watched that game, because I didn't actually know what was going to happen there.
Yeah, that. I mean, that's a build that we saw a lot prolifically in Season 1. I think that it's gained popularity. I mean, before when we were seeing it, we only saw One a King doing it. But now we're seeing it from other players. It's making its way around a little bit more. And to this day, I still haven't seen anybody successfully defend that.
Right, that's what I was going to say. There's some comments in chat about things he needed infestors. Yes, we've seen that attempted many times, and it has not worked. But I would still like to see someone. I'm a Protoss, so I say this with a grain of salt, but I would still like to see someone beat that build so that we can see how you do it. I really thought that, honestly, because Phil didn't get that gold expansion down to Blue Aces, I honestly thought that might have been the thing that Blue Aces needed to hold on to keep it going, but he just couldn't get pushed into Phil's bases at all.
And then, I mean, that's the whole goal, is to try and turtle up as much as you can as Protoss.
Delegation, would you mind exiting that game for me, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. And yes, I can do that.
So while we're at the end of that game, I could honestly do a show on that build. So I will not belabor the point, but while that was a great game, we're going to take a brief 30-second break, and then we're going to come back and jump right on into Game 2. So to sum it up, at the end of Game 1, it is Phil taking Game 1 for Overdose Gaming. And so going into Game 2 will be 1-0 in favor of Overdose, and we will be right back.